Today, we're diving into an interesting topic about habits and how they actually shape our lives in ways we might not even realize. We're talking about how our brains are wired to form habits and why they're so tough to break. It's all based on research by behavioral scientist Wendy Wood. Welcome to the Thinkers Podcast.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because, as Wendy points out, habits got a bad rap in psychology for a long time. People thought of habits as something that only animals, like dogs, used because they didn't involve much conscious thought. But humans? We like to think we're more sophisticated than that.
Exactly. But what Wendy found is that we act on habits way more than we think. It's not all conscious decision-making. We're kind of like automatic machines sometimes. It's actually what our brains are doing behind the scenes without us realizing it.
It reminds me of that story Wendy shares about a study done in the 1980s, where researchers tried to get people to use the stairs instead of the elevator. They put up signs and tried the usual approach, but it didn't work. Then, they slowed the elevator doors by just 17 seconds, and boom, people started using the stairs more.
Yeah, that's such a simple tweak, but it made a huge difference. And the coolest part? Once people got used to taking the stairs, they stuck with it even after the doors went back to normal. That's how habits work. They're built through small, repeated actions until they become automatic.
Right. And this is where the idea of friction comes in. Friction is basically any barrier that makes it harder to do something. Time, effort, distance. These things all act as friction. So if you make something easier, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, you lower the friction and make the new behavior stick.
And here's the kicker. When we try to change habits, we often think we just need willpower. We think, if I push myself hard enough, I'll make it to the gym. But Wendy says that doesn't really work, because our habits are stored in a part of the brain we can't just tweak at will.
Yeah, it's like trying to force a software update without access to the system. Habits are embedded in our memory in ways that protect them from change. The only way to actually change a habit is through repetition of a new behavior, over time.
That's so true. And what's interesting is that our environment plays a massive role in this. Wendy talks about how professional chefs set up their stations before cooking. They prepare their tools, ingredients, and the recipe. That's a great metaphor for changing habits. We need to set up our environment to make our goals easier to achieve.
Absolutely. It's not just about willpower, it's about setting the stage for success. Like if you want to eat healthier, you might clear out junk food from your kitchen and stock up on fresh ingredients. Suddenly, it's easier to make better choices.
Exactly. And there's also something deeper going on here. Wendy says that habits actually help give us meaning in life. Even rituals we perform, like morning routines or certain activities before a big event, have a habit component. These rituals help us feel a sense of control and confidence.
That's true. Look at professional athletes. Baseball players, for example, have all kinds of rituals they follow before stepping up to bat. It's about creating a sense of control, something familiar they can repeat, which boosts their confidence.
It's interesting how habits and rituals create this structure that makes us feel more in control of our environment. And when we feel comfortable with what we're doing, we can juggle more things at once, because we're not using up so much mental energy on basic tasks.
Right, it's like when you've practiced something enough that it becomes second nature. Then you can focus on other things, and suddenly you're more efficient and effective in the world around you.
So, in the end, the secret isn't just about trying to change our habits through sheer willpower. It's about understanding how they form, using our environment to our advantage, and repeating new behaviors until they stick.
Exactly. And maybe the next time we find ourselves trying to break a bad habit, we should ask ourselves, what's the friction that's making this so hard? And how can I reduce it to make the new habit easier?
It's a small shift, but it could make all the difference. We've definitely got more control over our habits than we might have thought.
Yeah, it's all about working with how our brains are wired, not against it. A bit of science, a bit of strategy, and you've got yourself a new habit.
Well, we hope today's discussion gave you some fresh insight into how habits really work. Next time, think about the small ways you can tweak your environment to make your goals just a little easier to achieve.
And with that, we'll wrap up today's episode. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to check in on your own habits this week. Who knows, you might just find a way to make them work for you.